Anubis was the Egyptian deity of cemeteries and embalming, as well as the protector of graves. As with any other culture or religion around the world, the Egyptians believed in paying respect to their dead. Therefore, they conducted elaborate ceremonies and mummification processes to help the deceased pass smoothly into the afterlife. Anubis was the deity who played an important role in this journey. Depicted with the black head of a jackal, Anubis helped mummify Egyptians when they died. Black represented the fertile soil of the Nile that was needed to grow yearly crops, so the Egyptians believed that the color black symbolized good fortune and rebirth. Jackals were associated with death, because they lurked around cemeteries and would eat decomposing flesh. Therefore, by making Anubis the patron deity of jackals, the Egyptians hoped to protect the bodies from being devoured. In addition, as recorded in the Book of the Dead, better known as the Book of Going Forth by Day, Anubis' other job was to stand in the Hall of the Two Truths and weigh the hearts of people seeking judgment. The human heart was balanced on the scale against Ma'ati, feather of truth. If the heart weighed more than the feather, the person identity would essentially cease to exist. The hybrid deity Ammon would eat the heart, and the soul would be destroyed. But if the heart weighed the same as the feather, the deceased would pass through the underworld duat and into the afterlife. Since the Egyptians believed in the concept of Ma'ati, which meant order, peace, and balance, death was regarded as importantly as life. Therefore, Anubis was a major part of the transition from life to death and back to life again. Symbols. The most common symbol attributed to Anubis is the canine. In Egyptian hieroglyphs, he is usually depicted as a canine jackal or dog, or as a man with the head of a canine. He is also often pictured in black, a symbol of death, and the color of a corpse after it is embalmed. He was also, at times, pictured carrying a flail or crook and flail. A crook is a stick with a hook at the end of it, and a flail is a stick with long tassels or ropes that hung from one end. Another item he is sometimes seen carrying is an egg, an Egyptian symbol that meant life or immortality. In the Greco-Roman period, Anubis was associated with the Greek god Hermes, messenger of the gods. The composite deity was called Hermanubis. Anubis is the Greek name for the Egyptian god. In ancient Egypt, he was known as Anpu. The Book of the Dead often shows priests wearing jackal masks performing embalming rituals. Anubis helped Isis and Nephthys to rebuild Osiris' body after he was killed by Set before presiding over the first mummification. Other symbols associated with Anubis included the flail, a crook, and a scepter. The flail was an agricultural tool symbolizing the pharaoh role as food provider. He was depicted with it in the crook of his arm. The Amulet fetish was closely related to Anubis. It represented a headless, stuffed animal skin that was hung on a pole and placed in tombs. Golden Amulet fetishes were found in the tombs of Hatshepsut and Tutankhamun. Many tombs in the Valley of the Kings were sealed with an image of Anubis as jackal ruler of the bows, enemies of Egypt, subduing the 9 bows. Carved prayers to Anubis were discovered in most ancient Egyptian tombs. Anubis' characteristic black color also symbolizes fertility and rebirth, as it resembled the color of the Nile fertile silt. As god of the underworld, Anubis was originally related to the Ogdoad, the 8 primordial deities worshipped in Hermopolis during the Old Kingdom. Anubis is associated with the Eye of Horus in the pyramid texts of Anubis. The Eye of Horus also acted as guide to the dead and helped in the search for Osiris' body. Because of his embalming skills, Anubis gained great anatomical knowledge that made him the patron of anesthesiology. Legend has it that Anubis priests were skilled herbal healers. Other epithets given to Anubis due to his funerary role were "He who is upon his mountain," referring to keeping watch from above, or most of the Westerners, or of the sacred land, and "He who is in the place of embalming." Horus. To the ancient Egyptians, Horus was one of the most important deities. He was commonly depicted as a falcon-headed god with a double crown. The pharaohs of Egypt were associated with Horus since the pharaoh was considered to be the earthly embodiment of the god. In the beginning stages of the ancient Egyptian religion, Horus was believed to be the god of war in the sky, and was married to the goddess Hathor. As the religion progressed, Horus was seen as the son of Osiris and Isis, as well as the opponent of Seth. This change in belief created the myth about Horus and Seth, in which Seth was jealous of Osiris, his brother and king of the deities, because he himself wanted to be king. He murdered Osiris and split the body into pieces, which he scattered throughout Egypt. Isis, wife and sister of Osiris, searched and collected the pieces of her husband with the help of her sister, Nephthys. Isis brought Osiris back to life, and he became the lord of the underworld and lord of the sacred land. Isis then gave birth to their son, Horus, and kept him hidden so he could one day defeat Seth. Once older, Horus claimed his right to the throne and battled Seth. Horus eventually won and became king. However, during battle, Seth damaged Horus' eye, dividing it into 6 pieces. Thoth restored the eye, thus creating the Eye of Horus, or Wadjet. The 6 pieces represent a series of fractions and the 6 senses, which included thought as a sense. Symbols: the falcon, along with the Eye of Horus, are the 2 main symbols affiliated with the god. The Eye of Horus is a symbol of protection and power, and is personified in the goddess Wadjet, another early Egyptian deity. It appeared in funerary amulets, protecting pharaohs in the afterlife. 7 such bracelets were found on the mummy of Shoshin II. He appears in the Heliopolitan family tree as the brother of Osiris. Heraktasi, or Horus of the 2 horizons, was the god of the rising and setting sun. Fused with the sun god Ra, he was also known as Ra-Harakti and depicted as a falcon or falcon-headed man with a sun disk on his head. In the final battle between Horus and Set, Set turned into a hippopotamus and tried to destroy Horus' boat. Horus managed to spare Set but was prevented from killing him by the other gods. They did, however, acknowledge Horus as rightful heir to the throne after the battle. Horus the Younger, or Horus the Child, was known as Harsisis or Harupakird. He was depicted as a naked infant with a lock of hair on the side of his head and often with a finger to his lips. In many depictions of Horus as a falcon or falcon-headed man, he wears 2 crowns to symbolize his rule over both Upper and Lower Egypt. Some pharaohs identified with Horus by wearing necklaces featuring eagles with wide-swept wings. Set tried to prove his dominance over Horus by seducing and having sex with him. However, Horus caught Set's semen in his hands and threw it into the river. He then spread some of his own semen on Set food. At a meeting of the gods to decide on Egypt ruler, Horus' semen answered from within Set, proving his dominance over his uncle. The Great Sphinx of Giza, that is generally believed to depict the face of the 4th dynasty king Khafra, was called Hor-em-Akhit, or Horus of the Horizon, in the New Kingdom, Apis. Apis was the most important and highly regarded bull deity of ancient Egypt. His original name in Egyptian was Api, Hapi, or Hep. Apis is the Greek name. He is not, however, associated with the god Hapi-Hep, who was linked to the inundation and is depicted as the god of the river. Worship of the Apis bull is recorded as early as the 1st dynasty c. 3150, c. 2890 BCE in ceremonies known as the running of Apis, but veneration of the bull in Egypt precedes this time, and so it is thought that Apis may be the first god of Egypt, or, at least, among the first animals associated with divinity and eternity. He was originally a god of fertility, then the herald of the god Ta, but, in time, was considered Ta incarnate. He was also, in some eras, depicted as the son of Hathor and was closely associated with her goodness and bounty. There were many bovine deities in ancient Egypt, Hathor simply being the best known, but Apis was the most significant because he represented the core cultural values and understanding of all Egyptians. Each individual deity had their own sphere of influence and power, but Apis represented eternity itself and the harmonious balance of the universe. Other bovine deities such as Bat, Butchis, Hassat, Mvis, and the Bull of the West, no matter how powerful, would never have the same resonance as the incarnated deity of the Apis bull. Apis is depicted throughout Egypt's history as a striding bull, usually with a solar disk, and Urawas, the sacred serpent, which symbolized the king's power between its horns. In the late period of ancient Egypt 525–332 BCE, he is sometimes depicted as a man with a bull's head, and, in Roman Egypt, this becomes the most popular representation of the god. During the Ptolemaic period 323–30 BCE, which comes between these two, He was represented in anthropomorphic form as a bearded man in robes, much in the fashion of Greek gods like Zeus, under the name Serapis. The Apis bull was always associated with the king of Egypt and, among its many meanings, represented the strength and vitality of the reigning monarch.